Well, guys, sorry for a delay as it took forever to get this all set up, but it's now time for my Week 2 picks for the 2021 NFL season. Yeah, thank you, computer, for doing that. And, of course, last week, oh my dear God, I had a terrible result as I went 7-9. Oh, jeez. I think that's the worst result I ever had for Week 1, because usually I do much better in Week 1. God, that was so bad. I thought 9-7 last year was bad. Freaking 7-9 to start the year. Not the results I want to see. Oh god, that was so bad. So of course, here is the current regular season stands and the playoff season if it happened today. Actually, I have the Steelers there. So in the AFC, the Texans have the bye with the Chargers at the Steelers, Broncos at Chiefs, and Raiders at Dolphins. Yep, all the AFC West is in the playoffs right now. And the NFC, it's the Saints with the bye with Cardinals at Eagles, Buccaneers at Rams, and 49ers at Lions. And my Super Bowl pick right now would be the Chiefs over the Rams based upon these playoff stands. So now let's get to Week 2 as we get to the first Thursday night game of the year, as it's the Giants at the football team, as the Giants try to avoid 0-2 for the 5th year in a row. The football team is trying to avoid 0-2 for the second year, since 2019. As the Giants won the last 5, the football team hasn't beaten them since 2018 and 2017 at home. And this will be pretty important, as whoever has this will have the second seed right now in the NFC East. So this is pretty important, as the Giants got absolutely crushed by the Broncos. That was completely surprising. And the football team put up a good game with the Chargers, but just couldn't hold on in the end. So the Giants, they got obliterated by the Broncos, and now they got to go on the road against a team with probably a better defense and possibly a better offense than the Broncos. Yeah, I'm picking the football team to get this one. This is pretty big for them to get this one. Same goes for Giants, too, as this is a second place seed in the line right now. And we'll see if Taylor Heinicke could actually cement himself as the future starter, since Fitzpatrick's out for a while. Then we get to the 1 p.m. action, as it'll be another AFC East matchup. The Patriots at the Jets, as the Patriots try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2001. And the Jets try to avoid 0-2 for the 3rd year in a row. The Patriots have won the last 10 in a row. The Jets haven't beaten them since 2015. As the Patriots had a solid game against the Dolphins, as Matt Jones looked really good, but they just couldn't get the win in the end. And the Jets, Zach Wilson looked terrible at the start, but he played better at the end. But of course, they lost to the Panthers in the end. This is going to be important too, because whoever wins this game is definitely going to have at least the second seed in the AFC East. And if the Jets win and the Dolphins lose the Bills, well, actually, they'll be tied with the Bills then. But this is looking like a very good indicator of who's going to be second place in the AFC East right now. So this is pretty important for both of them. But I'm going to pick the Patriots for this, as they're in a much better team than the Jets right now. And we saw they almost beat a near playoff team like the Dolphins. If they could do that, then surely they could crush the Jets. But then again, remember, the Jets almost beat them on that Monday Nighter last year, so you can't underestimate them. So then it's the Broncos at the Jaguars for the first time since 2016, as the Jaguars won the last one. The Broncos haven't beaten them since 2016, and the Jaguars haven't won at home against them since 2010, as the Broncos try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2018, and the Jaguars try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2019. So the Broncos, as we saw, crushed the Giants last week, and their stats look pretty solid. Meanwhile, the Jaguars got surprisingly crushed by the Texans. That's the result I expected if Deshaun Watson was playing. But he didn't, and the Texans still crushed them. As Trevor Lawrence, he threw 3 interceptions, but he also threw 3 touchdowns. So, I guess, start to the year. Now, of course, this will probably be tougher for them because the Broncos have a better defense. And I'm surely a better offense. Although the Texans' offense was really good last week, I think that was like a one-time thing and necessarily be a serious thing. Same goes for the Broncos as well. This is going to be probably a tough one. It can be a toss-up, but I think I'll just pick the Broncos just to edge it out. It's pretty close. So after that, it's the Bills at the Dolphins, as the Bills try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2018, and the Dolphins try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2018. The Bills won the last 8. The Dolphins haven't beaten them since 2016, as the Bills surprisingly lost to the Steelers. That was quite surprising after beating them the last 2 years. And the Dolphins, it wasn't pretty, but they did beat the Patriots, And they're in a pretty good position right here. If they beat the Bills, they already beat 2 divisional opponents, and they have a 2-0 record with 2-0 in the division. That would be a big help for them to have a chance to win a division. But it's definitely going to be tough against the Bills, and they haven't beaten them since 2016. Even though their one game in Miami was close last year, I don't think that's going to change anything, as I'm going to pick the Bills to get this win. And then we get to an NFC matchup that, although it looks good since they're both 1-0, I don't think it's going to be that way, as it's the 49ers at the Eagles for the first time since 2017, as the 49ers try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2019, and the Eagles try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2016, as the Eagles won the last 2. The 49ers haven't beaten them since 2014 or 2011 in Philadelphia. So the 49ers, they were crushing the Lions at first, but then they let them make that comeback, but they held on just barely. Their offense looks really good, but their defense looks trash. But again, when you allow the Lions to make that big comeback, I'm not surprised. The Eagles, my God. The fact that they beat the Falcons wasn't enough. They had to freaking obliterate them 32-6. Jeez, what a blowout that was. Unbelievable. Absolutely crushing victory. The whole team looked really good, but of course, was that because they were playing the Falcons, or is that like a trend, like the teams like turning it back around like they've done like in 13 and 16 when they were recovering from losing records? I'm still not fully convinced on the Eagles in that regard, so I'm going to pick the 49ers for this one. Then it's the Rams at the Colts for the first time since 2013, as the Rams are trying to go 2-0 for like the 4th year in a row. The Colts are trying to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2017, as the Rams won the last 2. The Colts haven't beaten them since 2009 and 2005 at home when they were still in St. Louis. So the Rams pretty much embarrassed the Bears, like I'm sure no one was surprised about that one. And the Colts, they got pretty much spanked by the Seahawks, which I wasn't expecting, especially the way they did, because I said last week it was going to be probably Carson Wentz that would be the problem for their losing. It wasn't him. It was the defense that got shredded consistently by Russell Wilson. That was insane. Now, of course, this, just like last week, will be a tough one to pick, because the Colts have had the last few years struggled in week 1, but then turned around to play really good in week 2. So the Rams definitely got to be on their toes, especially since they're now playing an actual good team, unlike the Bears, who are going to be a bad team this year. But I'm probably in a close one. I'm still going to pick the Rams just to edge out this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts get their revenge and get a win. Then, a big one in the AFC side. The Raiders at the Steelers for the first time since 2015, as the Raiders try to go 2-0 for the second year in a row, and the Steelers try to go 2-0 for the second year in a row as well. The Raiders won the last one. The Steelers haven't beaten them since 2015, and the Raiders haven't won in Heinz Field since 2009. So the Raiders, what a comeback against the Ravens. You do know they had they had 4 deficits in the game, and they still managed to make the comeback every single one of them to win in overtime. What an incredible game that was, as their offense looked like one of the most elite offenses right now after week 1. That's going to be impressive. And the Steelers, it didn't look pretty either, but they still stunningly beat the Bills. Although their stats look kind of bad, they still got the win, and this game could be really interesting and close. Now, the one thing that hurts the Steelers is the Ravens, I think, are better than the Steelers, or at the very worst around the same. Yet the Raiders still beat them. So, you know what? In an upset, I'm going to pick the Raiders to beat the Steelers, and then watch me fall flat on my face as the Steelers crush them like they have done before. So then it's the outer conference matchup, as the Bengals are at the Bears for the first time since 2013, as the Bengals try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2018, and the Bears try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2017. As the Bears won the last 2, the Bengals haven't beaten them since 2009, and 2005 when they're at the Bears. So the Bengals, nice offensive showing against the Vikings to win in overtime, but they did choke it at the end when they had, a 24-10 lead, and they blew it in the end. But they still managed to get the win to help out the year. And the Bears, I'm not surprised they got crushed by the Rams, pretty much. No one's surprised whatsoever. They need to just put Justin Fields in. Like, come on. He's the future. Just put him in already. But this game could be close, but I'm actually going to pick the Bengals for this one. The Bears look like a hot mess, and the Bengals, after beating a much better Vikings team, I'm sure they can have no trouble against the Bears. But watch, I say that, they're going to choke, and the Bears will get it. Alright, then it's the Texans at the Browns for the second year in a row, as the Texans try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2016. The Browns try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2017. As the Browns won last year's defensive struggle, the Texans haven't beaten them since 2018 and 2014 when it was in Cleveland. So the Texans, wow, they crushed the Jaguars. That, if Watson was playing, that's the results I would have expected against the Jaguars. But they won in despite of him not playing. That was insane. And the Browns, they actually stuck up a good one to the Chiefs, but they choked it in the end. So that was pretty embarrassing. But now you're at home against a team that is, I don't think the Texans are good. I think they're like the worst team in the league, along with the Lions, when Watson's not playing. I think that game against the Jaguars last week was more like just a fluke. I don't think that momentum's gonna keep up. But at the same time, their game last year against the Browns was close. But I'm gonna pick the Browns still for this one. But I guess I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans somehow get it and the Browns choke it. I mean, these are the Browns we're talking about. Alright, and we get to the final games, the final 1 p.m. game, as the big divisional matchup, as the Saints are at the Panthers, as the Saints try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2013. The Panthers are trying to go 2-0 for the first time since 2017, as the Saints have won the last 4. The Panthers haven't beaten them since 2018 and 2016 when they're at home. So the Saints, oh my freaking God! That destruction they gave to the Packers! Jeez! The fact that they won is one thing. The fact that they completely obliterated that team is unbelievable! That was like one of the most stunning victories. I almost want to say in years, but I'm sure there was a lot of stunning games last year that was just as incredible. That was insane! Absolutely insane obliteration they did, as their defense right now in week 1 is the most elite in the year, but of course that probably won't keep up the momentum going into this one. And then the Panthers, well, Sam Darnold got his revenge as they beat the Jets, but it wasn't quite a clean game though, especially since they almost choked in the end. But now they gotta go up against a pretty likely playoff team after that incredible destruction they did on the Packers. I don't think the Panthers are going to be able to do it, so I'm picking the Saints for this one. Then we get to the 4 p.m. games. It's the Vikings at the Cardinals for the first time since 2015. As the Vikings try to avoid 0-2 for the second year in a row, the Cardinals try to go 2-0 for the second year in a row. The Vikings won the last 2, as the Cardinals haven't beaten them since 2015, and the Vikings haven't won in University of Phoenix Stadium since 2008. Oh, State Farm Stadium, excuse me. So the Vikings, they made the comeback against the Bengals, but they just couldn't win again in overtime. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, oh my God, just like with the Saints, they embarrassed the Titans. That was insane, as Kyler Murray went off on them. That was insane. Maybe the Cardinals actually are taking a big step this year, as that is going to be a tough game for the Vikings to deal with against that, because their defense is bad. And now they got to go up after they struggle against the Bengals. Now they got to go up against the Cardinals. I'm picking the Cardinals for this one. But knowing the Cardinals this year, like last year, they'll probably choke it somehow and get the Vikings to win. Then it's the Falcons at the Buccaneers, as the Buccaneers won the last 2. The Falcons haven't beaten them since 2019. The Falcons try to avoid 0-2 for the second year in a row. The Buccaneers are trying to go 2-0 for the first time since 2018. As the Falcons, what in the absolute hell was that? It was one thing when you lose to the Eagles, but when you lose 32-6, that was a complete team implosion, and that was just embarrassing. Like, that early momentum you needed to start the year, like, all gone pretty much with that loss. That was a bad, embarrassing loss, and you needed to get that win to start off the year good. And the Buccaneers actually had to put up a hard-fought game against the Cowboys. Their defense did not look good, as you see by those stats. At least their offense saved them, but as we saw with the Eagles, if the Eagles are going to crush them, then what are the Buccaneers going to do? So I'm easily going to pick the Buccaneers for this. Then we can get to an offensive shootout, maybe, if the Titans showed up. And that's the Titans at the Seahawks for the first time since 2013, as the Titans try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2012. Oh, that's right, 2012. Meanwhile, the Seahawks are trying to go 2-0 for the third year in a row. Titans won the last one. The Seahawks haven't beaten them since 2013, and the Titans haven't won in Seattle since 2009. As the Titans, oh my God, that was straight up embarrassing. Derrick Henry was shut down. That whole entire offense was shut down. Like, everything about that team was just completely obliterated like the Packers were. That was just bad. That was you needed that win because you got a tough start to the year just like the Colts. That was a really embarrassing loss that you just can't afford. And it's shit like that where you need an offense, defense to help you. Because when your defense is shit, and then your offense doesn't show up, you're definitely going to be struggling, as that was just a bad loss. And the Seahawks spanked the Colts really well. They needed that win, as they're in a good position right now to maybe start getting some momentum in what looks like going to be an extremely competitive NFC West this year. So this will probably be an offensive shootout, but I'm going to pick the Seahawks for this one. And watch the Titans will probably implode again. I'm starting to get the feeling that the Titans might start being like the Vikings last year to start off the year. So far this year. And then the Cowboys are at the Chargers for the first time since 2013, as the Cowboys try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2010, and the Chargers are trying to go 2-0 for the first time since 2012. The Chargers won the last three. The Cowboys haven't beaten them since 2005 when they were back in San Diego. So the Cowboys, they had a really competitive game, almost had it too, but because the Cowboys are blundering idiots, they blew it against the Buccaneers. And the Chargers, it was tough, but they managed to hold on to beat the football team to get the win. This one is going to be tough for the Chargers because now they're going up against an actual good offense and maybe a solid defense if they didn't shit themselves. But you know what? In an upset, I'm going to pick the Cowboys to get it. And of course, Gavin's going to get violently angry seeing that one. And then we get to Sunday night, which probably should not be a Sunday night game after the results last year's Monday Nighter, as the Chiefs are at the Ravens for the second year in a row. This is the fourth year in a row they've played each other in the regular season. As the Chiefs won the last four, the Ravens haven't beaten them since 2012 and 2009 when they host them. So the Chiefs are trying to go 2-0 for the fifth year in a row. The Ravens are trying to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2015. As the Chiefs, as always, no surprise, always have to pull off a comeback, and they always consistently do that. As their defense looked like shit, but their offense has always looked good. The Ravens, meanwhile, oh my God. You had four leads that game, and you blew it, and then you blew it in overtime against the Raiders. You should have beaten them. But you got shut down hard, and your defense, oh my God, your defense one of the worst in the league, although it is just week one, but that is just bad. You couldn't even beat the Raiders, who have no defense. And then you got to go up against the Chiefs, who you haven't beaten in years against them, and they still consistently beat you. Normally I always pick the Ravens, but this time I'm picking the Chiefs. And then watch, I finally picked the Chiefs for this, and then the Ravens are going to finally pull through and get the win against them. Alright, then we get to Monday night, which I didn't think would be important, but it actually is to start off the year, as the Lions are at the Packers. As the Packers won the last four, the Lions haven't beaten them since 2018. The Lions are trying to avoid 0-2 for the second year in a row. The Packers are trying to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2006. As the Lions, at first they got crushed by the 49ers. Then all of a sudden they made this giant comeback but couldn't pull it off in the end. Although that doesn't change my thought, they're the worst team in the league. The Packers, meanwhile, what in the absolute fuck was that? It wasn't that you lost to the Saints that's bad. The fact that you lost 38-3, that was just embarrassing. That was the worst loss I've seen, most embarrassing loss, and maybe since the Buccaneers got crushed by the Saints last Sunday night by the same score, remember. That was just embarrassingly bad. That was a bad omen to start the year. Now, thankfully for you, you got next games against the Lions, who are probably the worst team in the league, so maybe you have a better chance for them. And like I said, this is actually a very important game because whoever wins this is going to lead the NFC North after week 2. So this is crucial for both teams if they get this. But despite their absolute implosion against the Saints, and the fact that the Lions made this big comeback against the 49ers defense, I'm still going to pick the Packers for this one. That was a bad loss against the Saints, but if you lose to the Lions, you got to be very worried, Packers. You got to be very worried. Although you probably would still win the NFC North even if you did lose to them. Alright, so those are my picks for week 2. I cannot wait for the Giants football team game tonight, as I'm picking the football team over the Giants, Patriots over the Jets, Broncos over the Jaguars, Bills over the Dolphins, 49ers over the Eagles, Rams over the Colts, Raiders over the Steelers, Bengals over the Bears, Browns over the Texans, Saints over the Panthers, Cardinals over the Vikings, Buccaneers over the Falcons, Seahawks over the Titans, Cowboys over the Chargers, Chiefs over the Ravens, and Packers over the Lions. So see you guys next time for week 2, and please, can I not go 7-9 again? That's just bad.